Alright folks, welcome to this exciting video where you once again join me in the wild lands of Scotland. And today, on this adventure, I've had to come this direction today because it's raining all around Angus. It's just like crazy rain showers and stuff. I was going to go to a couple other places, but literally it's just torrential weather. So for this adventure I thought it'd be cool to come up to the early monument. I've not been here for ages. I think it was like a year and a half ago I was here with the channel DJ when it was Storm Arwen. We had a severe like wind storm and it blew down so many trees. And recently as well, this past year, there's been nothing but forest operations and clear felling going on here. So like the landscape's changed completely since I was here. Even at this other side it used to be a thick forest and now it's totally gone. And there's actually a phone mast on top of that hill. I thought it would be cool maybe to go up there and just see the view over the valley at the other side. But I thought first of all, we'll go up for a wee adventure to like the early monument and just see how it looks now that there's no trees around it. Early monument stands on a hill between Glen Prosen and then Glen Clova over at this side. And the landscape up here is just incredible Scottish scenery, rolling green hills. This used to be an incredible forest walk, but now it's pretty much like wild open hill. Some of it's been replanted, but a lot of it's just like crazy long grass and like bushes. So yeah, I'm just going to head up this hill and see where I end up. I thought it'd be cool to pretty much just head up the hill as the crow flies. So I'm going to see how the land looks once I'm round this corner. So I can see these caravans up ahead. I think that's like the forestry workers. They just come and stay on site. It's crazy to see this hill here with no trees between us and the monument up on the summit. With an adventure like this, it's just unplanned. I never even know like where I'm going to go. I'll probably come down a different route. I might even go right over the other side of the hill and see how it looks. This is a crazy scene, folks. I'm thinking I'll just head right up this track and then go straight up the hill over the rough ground there. That's often when you have the coolest adventures, when it's just spontaneous. And I do love exploring the wild lands. Check this out, folks. I'm heading up onto the wild hill now, and I'm just going to go as the crow flies right up to the monument. I think the last time I was here with the channel DJ, it was snowing and it was crazy conditions. We actually found a path. There's actually a fence line runs further across. But today I'm wanting to just go a route that I've never been before. And like I'm just going to pick a route through all this devastation here. I'm sure this area will be replanted pretty soon. There'll be a fresh plantation. All this area here has been replanted. I'm gassed after coming up that hill, folks. It looks like the rain has cleared from all areas in Angus now. Literally earlier on it was just extreme rain, like I couldn't even believe it. Sometimes that's the thing with these adventures, you just have to go where the weather allows it. And I'm just hoping the rain doesn't come on when I'm up the top of this hill, but if it does, that's just part of the adventure. Look at this, this is a track here where there's been a forwarder. Think of that, they're able to drive up steep hillsides like this, no problem. Look at that right there. Huge piece of quartz in the ground. That's what you get all around it, Angus here and in the glens. Crazy geology and bits of rock. The cool thing I like to think with an area like this where it's been thick forest, there could be little bits of history or old remains of buildings and stuff that's been covered up for years and forgotten about. sometimes these adventures gives you a chance to like find stuff that's unseen. Wow, the view's just starting to open up, looking all the way up Glen Moy, and in the far distance it would be like Glendall. Glendall's actually probably further round the back of these hills from where we are just now. Look at this, folks, because of the heavy rain we've had recently, there's just water streaming off this hill all over the place. Yeah, it's such an amazing environment right here, and this Tower early monument, it just looks so cool standing up on top of this hill here. The red sandstone's a darker colour because it's wet. It's got that real like wintry vibe to it, like. Look at this, it's all been like sphagnum moss, and this was a forest. It was a thick, dense, mossy like undergrowth here. Check it out, folks, tons of huge boulders, some of them rounded like massive pebbles, and that's all left behind from the glaciation period, when all those stones were worn and carved and even carried to these locations from the ice and the thawing water. We're now on the steepest part of this ascent here, folks, and it's an absolute madness climbing up here. I love this wild, like unforgiving terrain. Like every footstep you have to be super careful, because there can be deep holes down where tree roots have toppled over. We're just about at the top of the hill. It's a mad scene out here, folks. It's been so worth the adventure. But this hill here is just pure carnage. It's amazing to see the forwarders have been driving up and down here. Look at this here, folks. This is actually an old road which dates back to the time, probably even when they constructed this thing, because we're right at the top of the hill now, almost. And just check out, this road comes up the side of the hill. The wind's more extreme right here, but I reckon this would have been an original road to approach the early monument on when it was first constructed, probably for the people of the estate. This was built as a memorial to a gentleman who fought in 4 wars. One of the family that owns like Corthay Estate, the Earleys. Wow, this is a crazy mad landscape right here, folks. I think I'm best just heading straight up because I can see the monument. Made it, folks, to the top of this hill. The wind's blowing through strong, so I'm keeping the camera at this angle here. I'm gassed after that hill climb. So what we're witnessing here was laid August the 31st, 1901. And just check it out, folks. We're now sitting in front of the early monument, which stands proudly on this Angus hill here, and it's just such a beautiful scene all around. It is extremely windy today though, so I'm crouching down here just to do this clip, but like the scenery here, I'll try and get some footage, but it's just mad to see this. Every direction, it's like the sun's pure shining. The conditions are so mad here right now that literally there's like clouds coming out of this forest over here. Look at this, folks. I'm going round the back of the monument. See, the wind's going a crazy angle today. Now I'm standing here, there's just no wind. But look at these clouds, like coming out of the forest. That's what I love about these adventures, folks. You never know what you're going to see, and just something like that, you can't describe that. You can only witness it. It's just crazy wee corners of Scotland. I just love often spontaneous adventures. You never know where you're going to end up, and Even if you've been somewhere before, it's just like so different each time you go. And today it's been cool because I was able to have a walk around here, and quite often it's super busy. This is another popular like touristy area in Angus, and you can see why with this view. You can see miles way up to like Montrose and the coast. Miles each direction, even all the way back down to Perthshire and stuff at the other side. But on a day like today, it's just so windy. It's just typical when you're on top of a Scottish hill though. I'm thinking I'm going to continue this adventure, just try and go along this hill and then make it down into Glen Prosen somehow, and just see where we end up. I often enjoy that, getting into situations where it's like unknown. Like there's often no even a path or anything. It's like crazy trying to read the landscape and keep safe and keep dry. It's so dark over the side where Glen Prosen is. I wonder if there's like rainstorms coming. I think that low clouds there is caused by like the temperature with the sun shining on the trees. I think it just creates like a warmer air, and when the air comes out of the trees, it's actually getting cooled so quickly by the cool air flowing past. So it creates that steam, and it's just constant coming out of there. So let's keep on going with this madness, folks. I love it, being this close to an ancient historical wonder. Look, there's even historical graffiti there. People who's probably like walked up here years ago. These were probably bricked up for people trying to get in. You can imagine all the years since this was built. Once a year there's like Open Doors Angus Day, and you can actually get onto the top of this. A cool other detail there, the cannons which stick out on the masonry are actually the outlets for the drains up there. But parts have fallen off the cannons over the years because of the frost and stuff chipping away at the sandstone. Sandstone's quite like a soft rock really. Check this out, folks. There's the old front door in there. Oh, it's open. Oi, oi. Oi! Hear that echo, folks? Wow. What an area we're in, folks. Let's take one last look around here. We're literally on top of the world in a location like this. I'll crouch down one more time while we're out of the wind here and just take in this crazy monument once again. Look at the clouds going past it. It just looks crazy when you look up at it. Amazing place, folks. This is so cool. We've been lucky today as well because there's been like nobody else in sight. You can see paths and stuff leading on this direction, but I'm hoping to go on a mad adventure further over the hill. I can see bike tracks here. Almost looks like somebody's had a trials bike here, or maybe a little motocrosser. There's actually quite a lot of heat in that sun today, and it just makes such a change out here in Scotland. So I can see here, folks, I've come through the gate from the other side of Ailey Monument. This is a view of Ailey Monument that we don't often see on the channel. It's just incredible. Such a crazy old stone structure. Just think 1901. A lot of those defensive looking holes and stuff, that's all just character of the architecture. That they were never actually genuinely defensive. I can see through that dirt bike has actually headed that way, so I'm interested. There's probably a decent path down through the forest. But I was just thinking I'm going to try and go through the next gate further along. On the hill up here there's actually one of these big internet mast things with the dishes, and I can see there's like a generator thing just sitting running the whole time. That must eat up so much fuel. Whoa, I nearly slipped there into that puddle, folks. That would have been... So quite often years ago I used to like coming around here on my mountain bike. It's quite a good track with a good little downhill section once you come into Glen Prosen. But it's been honestly years since I've even come around here. Since that time. but it's just strangely mild here on the hill today, and that's maybe the reason there's so much fog just like blowing out of these trees behind me. Check out, folks, there's old remains of an even older like little windmill that's been here. I think there used to be another mast here which did something for the locals, maybe like some old internet system or that, I'm not even sure. But I just noticed there's a crazy looking metal thing over here. It looks like they've been bringing like mains electricity or something up to the hill from here. Look at this, I'm just like not even on a path right now. The scenes are crazy out here, folks. This looks like, this must have been where they were bringing either a signal in or out, maybe for TV. See, that's crazy. A lot of channels are like urban exploration and stuff. On this channel here, it's countryside, mad little corners of the Scottish countryside, like outdoors. I'm always blown away that I keep finding little nuggets like this just hidden in the middle of it. Check it out, folks. Looks like it's been some booster or whatever for a TV, and then there's been another tank. Looks like with cables coming out below the ground. Anyway, my adventure continues. No way, look, there's an old mast right there. So that just shows you they were likely to be getting their TV signal way up here on the hill. Maybe somebody that lived down in the hollow of the glen which couldn't get a good TV signal. That makes sense, actually. Everybody else around them maybe didn't get a signal, and he would have had a really good signal up here on the hill. Anyway, folks, check this out. This is the edge of the forest here, and I'm wanting to just go on a mad mission here. There's no path, and I'm just going to totally send it down this hill, because I know that the Glen Prosen main road's somewhere down there. And like literally, you never know what is around the corner on these adventures like. And I'm just hoping there's no ticks at this time of year. Normally it's okay in the winter, but I'm just going to stay vigilant, because the last few years there's been so much of that stuff out and about. It's just been like, I've never seen anything like that in my life before. Yeah, so this is what it's going to be like going down here. I think I'm going to have to keep picking routes between the trees and between the bushes. Just look at the atmosphere of that, folks, for a scene. The foggy mist with the sunshine coming down through between the trees right there. It's almost just perfect. It's like a scene of paradise. We're so lucky that we can explore the middle of this. It's cool to share it with the world. I'm lucky to have amazing landscapes like this on my doorstep. Look, there's tons of stones, but that's just the nature of the ground around here. I might even find some old like little remains of a building or stuff like that. That's what I'm always just keeping an eye out for. Because if you imagine this land before the forests was here, there could be little crofts and little settlements from times gone by. Before like the Highland clearances and stuff like that. Looks like somebody has actually recently come this route, judging by what I'm seeing. Wow, this is just crazy, folks. It might be too thick forest to get through. We're just going to full send it here, folks. Check this out, folks. We've actually found some snow. So that shows the temperatures. I'm speaking about how mild it is and stuff today. But yeah, there we go. A little bit of snow. So it's still cold enough for that to be around on the land right now. I'm just heading down this untamed bit of land to this dark corner, and I'm wanting to look down through the forest and see if it's going to be passable. Just check where I am right now. There's probably nothing much coming through here apart from deer and wild animals. I'm constantly seeing buzzards and other birds of prey just circling around above me. They're probably out hunting for hares and rabbits and all sorts of other little animals that's running about here. Look at this, folks. This is how I talk about like moss and stuff being an invasive species. Look at this here. The way it's growing up all over everything. The moss itself almost looks like a tree. And that's just the whole way along here. It's just grasping onto the stems of that almost heather-like stuff. Just check it out, there's a small hole in the fence here. Almost looks like people's been going through it. Most likely deer. Wow, folks, what have I gotten myself into once again on the channel here? I'm way ahead on straight down here. I cannot even believe it. It's no worth going back up the hill now. Doesn't it look too bad? Real adventures once again, folks. This is some proper classic BKR. Wow, I can actually see there's like a line of stones along there. Maybe an ancient like marker in the land before this fence line was here. That's how thick the forests used to be around this whole area before it kind of obviously blew down. Luckily this side, this is more like the Glen Prosen side of the hill here, and it's survived pretty well. Still this thick dense forest, but I can see there's just rain droplets like hanging on all the trees. That's from that crazy rain that we had earlier. I'm lucky it's not come back on. The skies are still looking blue. Look at this, folks. This section here has just got tons and tons of stones underfoot with like years of tree needles and stuff that's just fallen on top of it. It's just pure spongy. This is almost like land which is normally just like unseen. It's crazy. We're so lucky in this country there's no like bears or something that's going to jump out. Wow, this is a real steep hill, folks. I don't know if it comes out on the camera. The light is crazy today as well, being in this forest. Right now we're in the forest where like all that steam was coming out of here not that long ago. Yeah, I'm going to cut off the path a little bit here. Check this out, look at this stone. Look at the mad patterns on it there. This is crazy here, like the amount of stones in the forest. It maybe shows how a lot of this hill would have looked originally. And further down at the other end of the hill, where like the monument and stuff is, there's actually an old stone quarry on the hillside, which I found years ago. We've made it out of that mad thick bit of forest there, folks. Check out, this is what I was meaning about the stones. You can see it here. It's literally crazy stony terrain here, with the trees planted throughout it. Yeah, there's so many stones. That's how through the trees I was thinking there was areas that looked like there's been foundations and stuff for buildings. Yes, it's going to be easier to walk now that I'm out this other side. And I can actually see the Glen Prosen main road down there now. Wow, what an adventure that is, folks. I love just exploring the unbeaten path like that. And here we are now in a different glen, like. I always think the character of these glens is different. You just come over like one hill and then like Glen Prosen just looks so different to Glen Clova at the other side. It's the lie, the hills and the nature of the land. I can see there's like a decent forestry road that they've built taking me down to the main road, but I'm wanting to just go down this way. Most of my adventures I love just like going as the crow flies. And then that's how sometimes over the years I've been on mad adventures and you just find like abandoned houses or mansions or so much stuff just hidden throughout the land of Scotland. Whoa, that tree's actually half fallen over right there. Look at it. Probably if you came here on a windy day that would just be pure rising and falling there. So there's a few bits where it's like that, folks. It's totally misty when I look in through the forest there, but it's almost like there's a track leading on through. It'd be so cool maybe in the future to come back and explore this area again. Often when you come on one adventure, it gives you an idea of other things you can go to in the future. Yeah, there's so many of these trees uprooted at the end here where the wind's now pounding on them. You get some crazy storms coming round for the top of these glens here. Check it out, folks. I'm just noticing the little farm croft over on in the middle of the field, and I was actually there like 3 months ago telling a story about this glen, about an old farmer that he was notorious for hiding his money in the walls when he was alive, and like everybody thought that's what he did. He kept the money hidden in the walls, and when he passed away, apparently his son had come from down south to try and find this money, and he actually took the whole farm down, the whole croft, brick by brick, just looking for the hidden money, which was somewhere. And then that's like an old story of the glen, which is crazy to think about. Like, the boy ended up, he didn't have a farm either because he took it all apart, and he never did find any hidden money like the old rumours had been at the time. But I believe other locals way back in the day had also come looking, taking things apart, dismantling it. I'm not sure if it is that exact croft, but it's a story from one of the crofts in Glen Prosen. It's an old local story that I got told. It's interesting to share that and keep it alive, the wee bits of history. Check this out, folks. All these little trees here starting to grow. There's just thousands of them all over the forest floor here. And that just shows you they're the ones that haven't been like replanted by the humans. They're the natural ones which start to spring up. And nature's got a habit of that, just kind of looking after itself. Kind of forest like this would naturally just start to spread, and you can see it there, how that could occur. And then after maybe like 1,000 years, that's how a natural forest envelops the land. Other trees, obviously, birds eat their seeds and then spread them that way, like, but this is evidence of how a forest can just gradually spread if it's left. From the cones and stuff like falling off and then going into the ground. Yeah, I need to go through this tree. I should have really gone round the top of it. You can see how the ground here is almost black and dark in that top layer, and that's from all the years of the plant life and the fir needles and stuff dying out and can turn into like that nutritious soil. Because you can see once you go further down from the surface, it's actually that lighter brown colour. But you can just see that top layer's made up from all the roots and all the bits of plants, all the different mosses. It's just like biodegrading down, if that's even the word. Turning back into soil, folks. Look at it, folks. This tree branch at the roadside's actually got like a hole in it. Just looks crazy. It's like the end of one of those sewing needles. I can hear buzzards above my head. This is the crossing point in the fence here, folks. Super slippy on top of these posts on a day like today. Crazy scenes right here. We've made it to the Prosen main road. That's been a mad navigation of the land right there. And I think this road, well, I know for sure this road takes us past the Captain Scott Memorial, which tells the story. It's like a carved stone sculpture which tells the story of Captain Scott going to the Antarctic on the South Pole on the boat Discovery, which is held at Dundee. But the interesting thing, and the reason the sculpture's here in this glen, is because he actually lived at the house in this glen, or his friend lived at the house in the glen, and he used to come here and actually planned a lot of the journey and stuff at the house in Glen Prosen, which is quite a cool local fact here. And another thing, they did some training as well for their Arctic expedition, maybe even similar route to what I've come today, because apparently they did training in this glen, and you can see why. Probably if they had done it in the winter when it's covered in snow, See that, folks? Like halfway down that hill, there's just an incredible amount of stones leading the way down the hill, and it looks like it's so much stones it's been more than just a dike. So I'm not sure if there's maybe been a croft further down there which has been taking water or whatever. It's interesting to see that, because I have recorded some of the other little abandoned croft areas up this glen, so there could easily be more still ready to be explored. But for sure, that's strange when I see that many stones piled. It's been like a wide dike formation, not unless it was an old boundary line from like way back 1300s before it. It's maybe the old boundary between the original Prosen area or two people's like bits of land. I'm just looking at this from all different angles, folks. I was actually thinking about going down there and having a look. Those stones have been there from a serious long time ago, and there's been so many of them. It's incredible to see that. So check this out, folks. This is real interesting. I've come down for a closer look. The amount of stones here is unreal. It could have literally just been the farmer who maybe cleared the land here. That's how I wanted to come for a closer look though, folks, because there's just such a large quantity of stones here. It's almost like they've filled in what looks like it's been a bit of a trench. But I believe this has been an older dike line at this side, and it looks like these stones have been tipped or dumped on. So maybe it was literally when they were clearing all this farmland up here, they maybe just moved all the stones. But some of these are massive big units, big chunks. It's crazy to think they'd be moving stones like that about. Look at the size of that one. Wow, folks, crazy history. I can see there is a road leading down there, so I'm not sure if there's like somebody's house. It's just when I saw the massive amount of stones, I thought it's cool to like, we'll include that on this adventure, because it just shows that you can find fresh history or things you've never seen. And even if this is stones that they've cleared off the field, just look at the massive quantity right here. It's like I'm on some old like fort boundary line or whatever. So I'm probably like 1.5 meters above the field level here. Wow, it's been cool to come down into the hollow to get a different perspective of Glen Prosen. And this has just been mad to see this here. I'm still trying to just comprehend why all these would be here. You wouldn't have thought, right, if they were just moving stones from the field. Look at the size of some of these. Like literally, they're just like tiny little pebbles. It's more like they've been put here as like a big boundary line or a wall, rather than just getting moved off the field. Because I thought with those little stones they would just leave them. Not unless this is just evidence of how many hundreds and hundreds of years they've been farming this land. Gradually those few little stones, they just build up and up and up, until eventually you've got a massive monstrosity of stones like this in a row. But that would signify like how long agriculture has been a part of this glen. Because every year in Scotland, even if you clear the stones, then more stones will always come up to the surface. And that's the reason if farmers and stuff planting tatties, they have to constantly be like stones separating the ground. So the tatties are just like growing in pure earth. Yeah, see the land kind of changes here. You know what, I'm going to keep on going beyond the bottom here, but I can see there's like a ridge. This is where the stones stopped. You would think if they were just dumping the stones off the field, you would think they would just dump them down the hill into the hollow or down near the river. I'm just keeping this adventure going, folks. My car's literally parked way around there at the other side of those trees in the other glen. But this is literally the sort of adventure I end up getting into. See, I believe this wall here is of ancient construction. You know, look, this is interesting. Wow, folks. What have we just discovered here? Because look at this. Even bigger stones right here, and look how many of them there is. It's so strange, this. It's almost like a massive boundary here we're witnessing from some old settlement or some old construction. But these stones are absolutely massive, and you would think surely they weren't moving all these stones from the land over the years as well. See, there's like a double dike line leading down there, and I'm just theorising it could actually be, maybe they've been redirecting water or whatever down to the bottom of this hill. Yeah, so look at this, folks. This is the double dike line that I spoke about. Look at these massive stones they've used to construct this. It's been a serious operation, and right enough, there is a waterway leading down the middle. So I'm not sure if they've been draining the land further up for their farm, or if they've actually been guiding the water down here for use at a farm lower down. But we're going to find out, because that's what these adventures are all about, folks. Uncovering history, which is almost impossible to see, but it is out there. It's getting wetter and wetter the further into this area that I come. I can see swarms of midges now, which shows it's getting warmer, almost spring conditions here today. So look at this, folks, there still remains of ice here, which shows the conditions we're in the middle of. Wow, I'm so lucky that I had on the boots. My foot just about disappeared into the mud right there. There's a cool thing, I'm totally hyped right now because I'm going for a quick look here, but I've noticed a crazy, what must be an old stone settlement further along there, which is so cool to see. Fresh history that we've never seen before on the channel. And I'm just cleaning my boot now in the river. Oh hey, look at this. So this does show that there's been a serious amount of stones here moved off the land, I'm guessing, when they were farming. I reckon all those stones must have been moved off the land, which is crazy because they're massive, and they were all just put in a row constantly until like eventually there was that serious pile, thousands of stones. Yeah, so it's hard to see, folks, but all these stones here must have been brought from the further up lands when they were making fields. And I'm thinking like it must literally be like 800 years ago they were at that caper, like, and to see the size and the quantity of the stones they've been moving, it's like one human would struggle to lift one of them for sure. And some of those stones you would need like 5 or 6 folk to lift them. That's how I'm amazed at what I was seeing. And originally I was just trying to figure out what I was seeing. The first piles of stones that we saw were those like tiny little ones, almost pebble like, whereas now these other ones have almost blown my mind, like massive rocks. So it's almost like they've levelled this land here, and you can see the ridge of stones that they've put in, an ancient dike. Maybe the ground at the sides of the dike was like 3 or 4 foot lower away back then, if you think about the vegetation as it builds up. And it's like I say, you never know what it's like round the corner on these adventures, and it just blows my mind the variety of things that we see. And it's so cool to document things that we've never seen before on the channel, and this is one of them for sure. This thing that I'm waiting to look at right now looks like it's been, if this has been a farm in a farm area, this must have been where the farmhouse was, the main HQ, the hub of all the farming activities and the family which may have lived here at one time. So that first row of stones that I walked down is over there, and then the massive big stones is along that middle section. But I could see there's another massive stack, probably 12 foot wide, of big stones. But this area here, folks, look at this. This has been like the main hub of the activity here, and you can actually see the last remains of what's been little buildings and stuff here. Like, there's just been such a large amount of stones, it's been crazy. But I can see the shape of this here, it's almost like a square. It is insane, folks, this whole area, it's blowing my mind. Just imagine a little farm way up here back in the day, or when you see how much like stones is here, just think like the manpower and labour that went into it. That's what's blowing my mind. The only time I've seen this much stones is when it's been like an ancient fort. And like, this is built on this prominent bit of land here overlooking the river. But I would say it's definitely been an agricultural hub. That's what we're exploring right now. And look at the quality of this sandstone, not sandstone, dry stone construction right here. Check this out, folks, I'm going to get this on video. See, it's like it's been the rough stone with the finer stone constructed at the front, the massive chunks. And it looks like this whole area has been built like that for miles and miles, folks. I can see there's like a little offshoot kind of wall along here, so I'm just going to take a look at that before I head up the hill. Wow. It's just mad to think about the folk that may have like walked on this land over the years. All times in history. Look at this, there's a little bit here juts out. So interesting to see, like, what has this even been? I wonder if there was like a little cabin here at one time, or a hut. Yeah, this is interesting. It's most likely just gamekeepers and farmers and shepherds now that come round here. And look at that, the raging river right there at the bottom of the hill. Anyway, folks, let's head on up with this adventure. Who would have known we were going to see so much of that stone from a historical time? I do know that there's like dry stone dikes all over the place. You can't go anywhere around here without seeing them. But like, this is dry stone construction of a different scale, a different era almost, like hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And it's cool that I've been able to document it again here on the channel. It's cool to hear that variation of stuff. And you just never know what it's going to be. And this video has been a cool adventure through loads of different like environments and conditions, like just for a fun adventure. I cannot even exaggerate to you the amount of stones here, like it's just insane. Look at that. Look at this, folks. It's been broken by getting drilled into and then split in two. That's so interesting to see that. Like, what have these stones come from up here on the hill? And that shows each one of them's not just a rough stone. It must have been when they were constructing something up here. It's almost like this has been excess stone. But then there's nothing up here like really suitable, like made with this stone, apart from like the croft houses. But wow, that is so cool to find that there for folks. Like, that is just like, it's just raised even more questions to do with these stones when you see that, because it shows it's not just random stones which were moved off a field and put here. It's stones which they've been using. I can hardly speak now, folks. Gassed walking up these hills. Wow, that's been so cool. I'm like, I always say the same words, folks. I've probably said it's cool, or it's a madness, or crazy, but that's often what happens on these adventures. It's like you get caught up with what you're seeing, and often I'm trying to think of like what even it could be, and then you see something like that, a drilling in that stone, and it just raises so many more questions. That's so interesting, folks, because it's almost like finding the Great Wall of China or something. It's almost like finding Hadrian's Wall. You can see the excellent construction through this, what I believe has been like an original dike line, and then it's like somehow they've actually fortified it with all those stones. If you consider all the hundreds of years those stones have been there, again, that must have been so much higher and more well constructed originally. And maybe it is from the times like the Highland clearances, when they were trying to defend their croft, make it harder for the English to get into their boundary. But whatever history that is, I would say it's like forgotten local history. And I love seeing the different dry stone techniques. Even the houses were built like that back in those days. So if you know what this site has been here at Glen Prosen, get in the comments, share the history. Because all the years I've been exploring, I've never seen such a crazy amount of stones there. And it's mad because I was literally just like 2 miles up exploring a croft like 3 months ago. This is insane, folks. This tree here has knocked everything down, which makes an excellent crossing point. So we're back on the road, folks, and look, I found the other end of that dirt bike track. I can see the marks. So whoever it is, they must have a circuit right around there. It's maybe even just like downhill mountain biking and stuff like that. It's a sheer steep hill though for coming down on like a mountain bike or whatever. Yeah, look at this landscape, folks. That's been a crazy adventure. We've been out like for hours on this walk, and it's crazy the different terrains and landscapes we've been able to look at. The way the fog and stuff often crosses the land here in Scotland. It's cool to capture it at a certain time of year. In a few months this will look totally different once everything starts growing. Wow, I love seeing it. These ancient beech trees which line the edge of the forest, they'll be hundreds of years old. The other trees behind that was probably planted like in the 40s or whatever, or even the 30s maybe. So I don't know if it comes out on the camera there, folks, but the sky's starting to get that red pink tint to it, and that's like, it's almost like 3:30 in the afternoon right now, and it'll be dark in an hour's time. It'll be pitch dark, and that's the crazy thing about exploring at this time of year. It looks like there's going to be a mad sunset though, which is going to be cool, and I'm still probably like about a mile from my car at least. I was hoping I could maybe run up the side of the hill and look at this abandoned quarry once we get round the corner. So there we go, folks. Robert Scott and Edward Wilson, 1912. And they went on the discovery to the Antarctica, the South Pole, 1912. And this is dedicated to them because they trained here, like I said earlier in the video, in this bit of land. So that's pretty cool, folks, and it's crazy to think 1912, you think that's a long time ago, but I guarantee you those stones that we just looked at down the edge of the field were just sitting there the same as they are today back then. Okay, and I think the history of those stones in the field is far more ancient than the early monument and all those things put together. Yeah, I believe another interesting thing here, on the really old maps, there's actually a quarry up here on the hill, and I'm not sure if that's where they got some of the stone for the construction of the early monument in 1901. These beech trees are just massive along the roadside. Another interesting point here, there's like what looks like a bit of a bog on the right hand side here, but it actually used to be a water supply for what I believe was Kirriemuir many years ago. Maybe like 100 years ago or whatever. So I can see an interesting thing here, folks. The ridge which goes around the edge of that land there, it's actually the old, it must have been like a walkway which went around about the original water supply. It would have literally just been a hollowed out kind of bit in the ground where the water was, and then it was piped all the way. It would have been a fresh spring. But that's the reason today that there's still so much water around this area. But I believe back in those days that would have been a path. You can often tell from like the lie of the land there. I believe also at this side of the road there used to be a path which went along the back of those trees all the way around Glen Prosen. There was a path at the edge of the forest. Often years ago, like when estates like this were in their prime, the land was so much better like managed and maintained. From here you can actually see the green ridge there where I was saying there would have been a path around the outer perimeter, and this is where the main body of water would have been. And then look at this up here, it's almost like a jungle-like scene. I'm going to head straight on up here. This is actually the old quarry, which when I first came here I didn't know it had been a quarry, but later when I was looking at an old map I looked and it's actually marked as a quarry. So let's go and have a look. Imagine the old quarry goings on, say hundreds of years ago. So look at this, folks, this untelling piece in the land. You can hardly tell that it used to be a quarry. But look at this here, this is the chunks of stone they've been taken out. It's unusual, all of it's got that, like, the same as what we've seen with those fissures kind of through it, with like the flinty quartzy stuff. And it's like they've just dug a massive chunk out the side of this hill here. Because it's so near to that other stone as well, I don't know if the two are kind of related at all. It's unlikely. Yeah, look at, this is probably, this quarry is likely to be even older than the times of the 1901 when the early monument was built. Look at that massive rock face right there, that whole thing. It looks so green at this time of year, so it's hard to tell in the video. The whole thing's just sheer rock right there. And that must have been what they were quarrying away at. Yeah, look, there's a little plateau in the land here. Wow. This is the kind of bit of Scottish landscape that I absolutely love. It's wild and unforgiving. Crazy, like rocks, ferns and bushes all mixed in. Look at it here, the way the ferns are growing off the top. Whoa, this tree's totally dead. You could probably push that tree over. Wow. The whole thing is like wobbling about. When I visit places like this, I try and imagine the people who were working here back then, when this was in its prime. I can imagine all that stuff's just like years of stuff that's washed over the edge and dropped in. This would have been a lot more straight cut in with sheer rock. And it's just a crazy scene, folks. I try and imagine the folk maybe mining away or kind of chipping away at that back in the days, and like what structures contain the stone from this hill. Probably some houses and buildings around this area. From what I'm seeing, it doesn't look like the same type of stone that you get down where we saw that stone in the field. I can see it the other side as well. There's literally somebody ripping a quad with a trailer right now. Must be the gamey. He'll be out like feeding the pheasants and stuff like that. Shooting's still a big part of the Scottish estate scene. Up here at Cortahay it's still in full action. This is the original old road up to the quarry. I'm just going to follow it out and we'll get an idea of where it actually joined onto the main road. You can tell from the size of these trees that obviously the quarry's not been accessed by vehicle for probably since about the 1930s. Just think the horse-drawn carriages would have been coming up here to collect the stone and take it off. Often they might have had rougher stone like that down the back of like walls with the bonny finished stone at the front. This is crazy, folks. The land looks so different now, there's no trees at the opposite side. Like I say on other videos, often when you come on an adventure it's like travelling back in time. And when you see all those different things, it's like going to different eras in time and you get a small window into like what was going on in this area at that time. And it's been cool to see that variation of different things we've seen. It looks like this is where the original quarry road came out, right next to where this bench is, and my car should just be literally parked at the other side of here. Another interesting point, folks. Once again, you can see now how big a body of water this had been. And this is where I was saying that one of Kirriemuir's water supplies actually came from here. And I believe it was piped like over down the Meames Hill towards Kirrie. But you can see over the years how sediment and grass and debris just fills things like that up. They go from being a clear waterway to just being like a grassy bog in the forest. So I believe just this past few weeks that whole area was frozen over solid with ice, because I can still see the majority of it. It's got a good couple inch of ice over it just now. I'm not going to go too close because literally that grass, you just sink right into it and you could be up to your waist in water or even worse. So I can see their actual fence line is at the edge of that level bit which leads right around that waterway. And it leads right down here. I'm not sure if at one time there might have been like access on foot from like the village of Dyke Head. They might have had like a little foot access for folk to safely navigate up to Ailey Monument and stuff and around the glen. Right folks, that's me just about back at my car. It was a real fun adventure. I often love that, just going full send into nature, and then along the way you just find crazy bits of history that's never even been videoed before or documented. And if they weren't videoed, they would just sink away into the ground and be forgotten for years. One of the coolest things we found today, I would say, would be like that stone with the old drilling mark within it. But it was also cool just to see Ailey Monument and the wild forest landscape we navigated. And then to see that quantity of stones at the far side, it was just interesting. And then another cool thing we saw was that remains of the quarry. And then the waterworks, and it just shows you how much history is in one area. Even the Captain Scott monument. One thing I would say about the quarry though, it doesn't look like the amount of stones we saw around in those fields and all the way up the glen. It's like the quarry's no big enough for all those stones. Those are literally from a different, older time, I believe. The stones have been gathered and put there and used for some other reason. Anyway folks, I'm just about back at my car. I'm ending this one here. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll be back very soon with the next one.